judge has dropped charges against the 86-year-old Hosni Mubarak. He was sentenced to life in prison for conspiring to kill hundreds of protesters during the 2011 uprising. But he was later cleared in a retrial. There were scenes of jubilation among his supporters as the court dropped its case. But families of victims who died in the protests have been left shocked. To get the latest, we're joined now by our correspondent, Adel El-Makrouki. He joins us from Cairo. And Adel, what's been the public reaction to this latest development?
Well, the public reaction, the celebrations or the jubilations was on the Saturday when the verdict was announced. But it did not last for long. They celebrated for a few minutes at the police academy where the trial has been held. The Mubarak supporters have decided to go and celebrate at the military hospital where Mubarak resides to continue there. But this is where it ended. As for the protests or the opposition, it lasted a little bit longer. On Saturday night, we've seen unprecedented numbers of opposition standing next to Tahrir Square, and this hasn't happened for about 15 months since the ousting of Islamist President Mohamed Morsi the year before. About 3,000 protesters, most of them youth. They did not organize or plan to protest. Everyone on his own went to Tahrir Square feeling frustrated and angry that the former president got an instant verdict after they've seen, according to them, they've seen their brothers and friends and relatives being killed in the protests in 2011.
So, Adel, prosecutors are saying that they will appeal this decision made by the court. What does that mean for Hosni Mubarak and his supporters?
Well, basically it means that this is not final yet. So everyone will be on standby to see if first the prosecution's appeal will be accepted or not. But it's not a very simple process. What happens during the coming 60 days since the verdict itself was announced, the prosecution has that period of time to investigate exactly and study a document over 1,400 pages long that the judges wrote was the reasons for them to reach the verdict. And it has to analyze it, critique it, and form a counter argument and submit it to the appeal court. If the court accepts that appeal, it will have to study the case, but it will not be a long process. So if the appeal is accepted, the appeal court will set one date, one session. It will get both sides, the defense and the civil rights lawyers and the prosecution on the other hand. It will give them their final verdict, and there will be no further appeal. But many say, legal analysts, that it is a slim chance so far. It seems that Mubarak verdict might be back to its previous one in the first trial when he had a life sentence. So there is still possibility that Mubarak could be convicted. Many expect it might be less, but at the same time his defense stands still, and they're very confident that if an appeal is accepted, it will just be technical issues, and they're sure they can get over it and guarantee another innocence verdict for the former president.
Has there been any kind of response from the opposition Muslim Brotherhood to this court decision?
Yes, the Muslim Brotherhood has participated in the protests I earlier mentioned, but protesters there did not want them to show any sign that they belong to the Muslim Brotherhood. But at the same time, after that, it called upon the entire nation to protest for an entire week across the country, objecting to this and describing the current regime, which it calls the coup regime, as conspiring against the January 25 revolution. But at the same time, many political parties have called their supporters not to get along with these calls. They still believe that the Muslim Brotherhood is a threat as a banned organization branded by many political parties and the government. So most of the political parties have decided not to respond to these calls.
How has the Egyptian media been reporting this?
Well, the Egyptian media, there isn't any strong sense of opposition overall. There are some opposing news anchors, but the general sense is sort of, they go along the lines of respect the judicial authority. The judicial authority is independent. We should not, I'm quoting here, we should not critique any judicial verdict. But it comes along with frustrations with very few television anchors who have been part of the January 25 revolution. And even some of those who have been part of it have changed their position. And many on social social media are sharing videos for these anchors during or after Mubarak stepped down in 2011 and this week after the verdict was out, to show the comparison or the difference in their position when they were happy that Mubarak was imprisoned and they were calling for death sentences or for Mubarak to face justice, and them now, same people, satisfied with this verdict. So it's quite a contradictory position, and it has a lot of debates on social media particularly. Other than that, the general sense in the media is respect the judicial verdict.
Thanks, Adel. That's CCTV's Adel El Makrouki talking to us from Cairo.